Well, first of all, I want to say I'm sorry to all the fans of the Garden, fans who are watching. Never want to be a troublemaker in life, and it was just a bad scene. I'm 4 rows from this guy, so I'm going to walk in a place and just start hollering out, Jane Dolan, Jane Dolan. I mean, that's embarrassing, man. I did not do none of that. I didn't know the man was sitting in front of me at first until they walked over there. I've been trying to sit down with this man for 4 or 5 years, find out what did I do to make him dislike me. All I did was play hard for the organization for 10 years and the fans in New York and gave him my heart every night. So he don't have to like me, but he didn't have a right to send. I mean, I bought my ticket to get in.
Following his arrest last night at Madison Square Garden, Charles Oakley referencing Knicks owner James Dolan. Today, the Knicks organization offering a second statement regarding last night's incident, saying, quote, there are dozens of security, staff employees, and NYPD that witness his abusive behavior. It started when he entered the building and continued until he was arrested and left the building. Every single statement we have received is consistent in describing his actions. Everything he said since the incident is pure fiction. And then because there aren't enough layers to this Knicks drama already, 2 hours ago, Phil Jackson fired off this vague tweet in an apparent attempt to clarify something. We're just not sure, Kenny, what exactly he's trying to clarify. Phil Jackson saying, so after starting a firestorm, could use the emoji there by Phil, with the misunderstood tweet, I offer this peace. Our society is torn with discord. I'm against it. Let it be. Game time with Kenny Smith, Jared Greenberg, taking you up to the top of the hour. At that time, TNT takes over with a doubleheader. It's Cleveland and OKC. In moments, a status update on the Cavs' big three. What's going on in New York?
Very interesting. You know, unfortunate, first of all. Charles Oakley has been a great player for the New York Knicks. He has left his blood, sweat, and tears on the floor. And there has been incidents with him on and off the court, but doesn't mean that he is a aggressive guy every time you see him. So there's a reason why there was, I guess, 7 or 8 security guards there prior to that. And that's the biggest question, because there are cameras everywhere in Madison Square Garden. So if he had belligerent behavior prior to this, just like we're getting this, it would be everywhere. They would have people saying, here he is screaming at Dolan. Until those things come out, you know, you would have to say that Charles Oakley reacted incorrectly to what was going on, but you would have to believe what he has said until you can produce something differently, because there are cameras everywhere in Madison Square Garden. That game was like 4.5 minutes, 5 minutes in. You would see him berating the owner or berating anyone as he walks in the building. That's hard for me to believe, that part. That part is hard for me to believe.
Well, still way more questions than answers than about last night's incident, but it goes to a greater issue, which Reggie Miller is tweeting about earlier tonight. I want to bring in this tweet from the Hall of Famer who said, if you're a free agent to be, why would you play for an owner who treats the past greats like this, or a president who stabs star players in the back? And the whole totality of everything that's gone on this year and recently for a team that's made just 3 playoff appearances in the last 12 years. Hall of Famer Reggie Miller joining us tonight. He'll be on the call of OKC and Cleveland. Reggie, so what do you think the answer would be? Is this a real problem in the future for the Knicks to acquire talent?
I think going forward, it certainly will be. I mean, you know, Kenny mentioned this. Charles Oakley he's not liked in the New York Knicks organization. He is beloved. And, you know, Kenny can attest to this because he and I came in the same draft in 1987. I've known Charles Oakley for over 25 years. And was he a hard worker? Was he a guy that gave everything that he possibly could out of his body when he was on the floor? Yes. Did he cross the line at times? Yes. But that's why Chicago, New Yorkers, Toronto, that's why they loved him, because he left it all on the floor. So for your owner to have whatever relationship or you don't have with Charles Oakley is a little befuddling to me. This is the 70th anniversary of the Knicks, and they're bringing back all these great players. And for Charles Oakley to kind of get the Heisman from the man in charge, it's a little head-scratching, because all he did was sweat, blood, and tears for you, and he just wants to be a part of it. And if you want me to believe that he was being belligerent and out of control, and I agree with Kenny. Everywhere you walk in these great, beautiful arenas, and Madison Square Garden is no different, as soon as you walk in here, you're under 24/7 surveillance. So until they produce to me that he was being off his rocker and belligerent and cussing out James Dolan, I'm not going to roll with that. What I think happened is that he went there on his own accord, hoping for an olive branch from James Dolan so they could talk at a later date. I think that's what he was hoping. When Dolan saw him and turned around, and next thing he knows, he's got 6 or 7 guys around him. That's what we've been seeing all over social media and on ESPN, is that reaction. So until they give me another type of video that shows Charles Oakley was out of character and fans were uncomfortable, it's hard for me to roll with that. And Kenny, this guy was suited down. He wasn't in Timberlands and baggy shorts.
He wasn't
and
in.
a
He
sweater
wasn't.
ready. He was suited down.
Well, I'll tell you what.
He was looking to take off his $30,000 watch. Is this a guy that's coming to get into a scrap?
Well, there's 2 incidents. I agree with you 100%. But even I will get messy even in my dress codes too sometimes. But I will say this: the one thing that was very noticeable to me about the video, Reg, was one. I think that was John McEnroe sitting next to him.
Yeah.
So John McEnroe. So
I
McEnroe will
hear
know.
from Johnny Mac.
Yeah, he will know everything that was said
will know.
and was not said. That's the first part. The second thing is when he pushed one of the officers or people off of him, he actually hit a person on the side and had enough cognizance to look back and go, my bad, I didn't mean to hit you. And then, see, he's talking to the person, I'm sorry, earlier. So to me, with that type of energy, it was difficult. Yes, did he act incorrectly after the fact? Did he fall for the bait? Yes, he did. He fell for the bait because they sent them over there because if Charles Oakley, and I'm probably going to say this later, Reg, if he walks into your arena, if Reggie Miller walks into in Indianapolis, if they have a problem with you, they're going to send a PR guy over and say, hey, can I talk to you in the back? I need to talk to you privately in the back. And you, as a superstar Reggie Miller or Charles Oakley, a beloved Nick, will walk to the back to hear what you have to say. Now, then it might lead to getting out, but you're never going to embarrass that person right there unless you wanted to do that.
Does this speak to larger issues?
And let me just say this. You're 100% right. Kenny, you should never put your hands on another person, law enforcement, anyone. To me, he crossed the line there. If he just would have left on his own accord with everyone chanting Oakley, then that would have been a different story. He would have been even more of the hero today. So he's in the wrong, but on the flip side, I can see it because this is a guy that, again, is so loved in New York, and the security guards that are coming up to him were the security guards when he was playing there in the Garden. He's like, what are you coming up to me for? I know you, Charlie. Why are you coming up to me?
And
that's what makes it so comical at times.
But the one thing, Reg, and this is, obviously you probably would have handled it differently, but how upset would you be if you walked into Indiana and then the PR guy and 2 security guards say, Reggie, you got to get out of here?
I would be, and I talked to some of my friends about this. This is almost like the Simon family who owns the Pacers telling my Davis boys that they were no longer welcome in Bankers Life Fieldhouse. I would have blown my lid. I would have gone crazy. That's why I want to hear from Patrick Ewing. I know John Starks and I know Larry Johnson, they work for the organization, but there's former Knicks that need to come out because this is not right, because Charles Oakley is one of their own. And that's what
Reggie,
makes
he has been very critical.
I don't care. I understand. I know he's been critical of the Knicks, and Charles never has held his tongue. I get that. But it cannot be this divide between one of the former greats and your owner, James Dolan. Something has to happen where there's a bridge where those 2 guys can come together and
I agree
work
with
together.
your tweet, Reg. I think that this really sends a message Yes, we could understand how we could see the perspective of how Charles Oakley was wrong, but we cannot see the perspective of how it escalated to that. No one who has been a player for a long tenure at any venue can understand how it got to that point. We can understand the perspective that he is wrong, but we cannot understand the perspective of how it got there and how you allowed it. Because to me, your first job in that thing is diffuse any situation which did not look like it was going over there to be diffused.